Hi, Paul, and hello everyone online, and thanks so much for taking the time to listen in today. I'm looking forward to showing everyone today how to adjust your style of communication so that you avoid miscommunication and almost instantly improve the level of rapport you have and the effectiveness of your discussions. What I'll be doing is providing you some background about the four core energy levels and then going through how to identify your own style and those you interact with, and then how to best get your points across in an influential manner.
Yes, Rob, I'm looking forward to this as it's an integral part of any relationship, whether that's family, friends, a manager of people, or particularly in a sales scenario. But before we do, we should cover some basic housekeeping. We want these webinars to be interactive, so we'd love you to send us a question through at any time, or you can wait for our Q&A session at the end. To do that, you'll see a box on the top right-hand side of the screen, like this one. Just type your question and we'll answer it during the webinar, or Rob will follow up with you later. I'll remind you that a replay of the webinar will be sent to you after the conclusion, along with Rob's slide presentation. So don't try to get down all the details, just note down any jewels of wisdom or immediate actions that you find important. So, Rob, what can people expect to learn from today's webinar?
Well, Paul, there's a lot I could go through today when it comes to communication and making the most of it, but I will have to be brief, and in some cases I will have to gloss over things that we could spend much more time on. Just imagine if you could predict what someone will do in any given situation. Would you think that's a bit creepy or interesting or perhaps even unbelievable? However you feel, the most important thing is that it is actually possible. We are all unique, and each of us has our own way of doing things and behaving in different situations. By appreciating these differences and learning how to identify them in those you meet, you can actually improve your communication and be more effective in influencing them. This knowledge can be useful in a number of situations. As you pointed out, Paul, for personal interactions with family and friends, for leaders and managers to understand their team and be able to influence them effectively, in recruiting staff and ensuring that they interact well with the current employees, and in any sales situation, so you can better appreciate how to present your product or service in a way that it will maximise the chances of a successful close. So in this webinar, I will take you through the four main energy types and how to use them to understand and communicate with everyone you meet. We'll learn the characteristics of each type and apply them to yourself, your friends, and your work colleagues. Then we'll learn how to hit the right buttons with your behaviour and communication so that you can be more effective in influencing them.
That sounds like a great asset to have in business, Rob.
Yes, it is, Paul, and I hope our listeners gain an appreciation today of how powerful something like this can actually be. Let's first put up a definition. Communication is the meaningful exchange of information between two or more people, usually to convey some sort of message. As you can see here, that exchange comprises both verbal and non-verbal elements. So it's important to note that not only how it's being said, but what's being said. And as this quote by Peter Drucker, who's a author and management expert in the field, the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. And that's what we'll be looking at in more detail today. In essence, we'll look at the style of communication, which amalgamates a person's behaviour along with the verbal and non-verbal elements. What I'll try to convey today is an overall understanding of your own behavioural style an understanding of your own listening style, and understanding of how people around you communicate, an understanding of how to appreciate your style and adapt it to communicate better with others, and how to understand how this can then be applied to a group or team members.
That's a great series of outcomes for the webinar today, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yes, it will be, and I'm sure there will be something everyone will learn today. So firstly, I'm going to present the quadrant model that this is all based on.
Okay.
This graphic shows the various behavioural profiles we each fit into in some way. We can be introverted or extroverted along that scale. We can either be task or people-oriented. We can be either thinkers or feelers. And we can be either quick to act or we can process things before we act. This gives us the 4 quadrants displayed here. So the dominance quadrant represented by those of us who are extroverts, task-oriented, thinkers, and who make quick decisions. The influence quadrant of extroverted, people-oriented feelers who also make quick decisions. The steadiness group, who are introverted, people-oriented feelers who take their time making decisions, or the compliance quadrant of introverted, task-oriented thinkers who also take their time making decisions. So this is the DISC model of behavioural profiling. Another way to look at this is that D and I people are more outgoing, while S and Cs are more reserved. The Ds are the tellers in a group. They love to tell others what to do. And the Is love relating to other people. The S's tend to judge others and accept or not accept them. And the Cs are always assessing others and their situations. So when you encounter people of each quadrant, they actually then also talk about different things. The Ds talk about their goals, themselves, their values, their results, and the need for change. Is tend to talk about people, team spirit, good news, the future, and themselves. S's love to talk about agreements and principles, the past, proof, and all aspects about their team, while the C's are all about the facts and the details, the rules and the instructions. So you can see already that by picking up on certain clues, you can assign people you interact with into one of these quadrants. And maybe by now each of you have already done that while I've been going through these.
Yeah, I sure have, right? I actually find that I fit a couple of quadrants. Is that possible?
Yes, it is, Paul. In fact, more often than not, most people are a combination of at least 2 quadrants and sometimes even 3.
Okay.
But usually there's one more dominant quadrant, which is the one you should focus on when looking at how to influence them. Okay, so we've had a brief overview of the DISC quadrants, and hopefully you've decided on what is your likely quadrant. So let's see now how we would pick the quadrants of people that we're interacting with. To pick a D, you can look for the following characteristics of their style. So they tend to focus on the bottom line. They tend to be quite quick with their decisions. They always seem to be in a hurry. They're quite impatient and they can interrupt. Their concentration span is quite short and they give the impression that they may not be listening to you. They always get straight to the point, love talking about the big picture and just don't bother with details at all in any sort of situation. They're not into emotions at all. They're not into emotional conversations. And they tend to have trouble understanding other people's points of view. So to pick the I style, you can look for the following characteristics in a person. They tend to be easily distracted with the environment. They tend to interrupt quite regularly because they feel they need to contribute to maintain their concentration. They love talking about people and socialising, particularly when it comes to feelings. They can go off topic quite a bit. They do lose their focus. They're usually very animated. They love, using body language and so on. They get quite excited when they agree with you, and they're pretty quick in offering their opinions and feedback.
Okay, so then we're on to the S then.
We are, yes. So to pick an S, you can look for the following characteristics of their style. They tend to be more easygoing, very calm. They're your typical nice person that you meet. They tend to listen very carefully, and they always seem very engaged in the conversation. You often get the nods, and they seem to be going along with things. They are a little bit slow to make decisions, so they're the ones that will say, let me think about it quite regularly. They don't easily get excited or animated with their body language, and they often ask questions about specifics and so on. And they do have strong opinions, but they often keep that to themselves. They're fairly quiet about it.
Yep.
And then finally the C. To pick a C here are the sort of characteristics you can look for. They appear even more reserved than an S, and certainly very quiet. They do focus on details. They love specifics, so they love to study specifics, so they ask a lot of questions. These C's are not very comfortable at all with physical contact, so they avoid contact, and they don't easily express any disagreeing views. They'll keep them to themselves because they don't want to confront people. And they'll only make decisions after they've studied all the facts and the issues. And if they know that, they can be quite critical. If they've got their facts and opinions pretty strongly, they can be quite negative and critical about things.
Okay, so how do we put all this together when we want to influence someone and improve our communication with them?
Okay, so you put all this together, we can keep the following 4 steps in mind. Firstly, you need to be clear on the context of the discussion. Is it a friendly chat? Is it a business chat? Is it a sales scenario, and so on?
Okay.
Second, you need to be clear what the goal of the discussion is. Third, use your knowledge of DISC to understand the style of the person that you're talking to. And then finally, and the most important part, learn to adjust your style so that you can make an impact. What I'm going to go through now is how you can quickly pick up on someone's style and how to best influence them that way. First on a general scale, and then specifically what's needed from your own style in particular to have an impact.
Okay, so do we start with the D's again then?
Yep, so let's start with the D, and so here's how you can quickly pick a D. Their non-verbal language is quite strong and confident. They've got usually strong eye contact. They look you straight in the eye. They're the ones that bound into a room, and they have a firm handshake. They're very direct, forceful, and commanding in their conversations, and they can be quite loud and forceful, and they can interrupt, and they talk quite rapidly. As I mentioned, they can appear to be in a hurry at all times. They're quite impatient, and they tend to speak in pretty abrupt and short sentences. Generally, here's what you need to do to have a good chance of being heard by a D. You need to make your body language confident and your eye contact direct, and your voice needs to be strong and fast-paced. If you show any weakness or uncertainty, you've certainly lost them from the start. Now, here more specifically are aspects of each DISC style when communicating with a D. So these focus on areas of your style that would frustrate a D. So by relating in this fashion, you're more likely then to get a positive outcome.
Okay, so in the previous slide, you explained what aspects are favoured by a D in a general sense. And these are peculiar aspects each style would adopt themselves. Is that right?
Correct, Paul. That's right.
Okay. So in my case, where I think I have a strong I component, I should be direct and brief with the D, stay focused and stick to time, as these may not be sort of natural tendencies for me.
That's right, Paul. As an I, you would have a tendency to be more people focused, and a D is more task focused. So
Right.
a D isn't interested in general chit chat. They want to get straight to the point. As
Okay.
an I, you would tend to love to talk about a range of things. You may get distracted. You may like to make sort of team decisions,
Yeah.
whereas a D isn't at all interested in those. So you need to adjust your natural style to suit the situation.
Okay.
Okay, so let's look at the I quadrant now. And here's how you can quickly pick an I, which would be you,
Yep.
Paul. So an I typically is quite charismatic and has a happy smile. They tend to laugh and engage and listen to people. They can be a bit repetitive, as they tend to talk as they think. So there's a lot going on in their brains. They tend to be quite animated. They love using their hands and being expressive. They wear their feelings on their face, so you can see pretty clearly, what they're thinking. They can move and talk quite fast, and they're sort of fun people. They can be touchy-feely. They can seem to be a bit distracted at times and seem like they're not listening. And they can appear to be a bit unorganised or disorganised and a bit hectic at times. So here's what you need to do to have a good chance of being heard by an I. You need to make your body language energetic and open, and your voice a little bit more upbeat and fast-paced. And I love hearing stories about people, so make sure you engage them with storytelling about yourself. So you need to be friendly and involving with an I. So now if we look at the more specific style aspects of each DISC style when they're communicating with an I. So you can see here, if we look at the opposite scenario of a D having to influence you, Paul, they would need to make some significant adjustments to their natural style. They don't naturally show enthusiasm. They're not chatty or social people, and they certainly don't normally ask others' opinions when it comes to decision making. But if they're trying to influence you, the decision maker in this case, they have to adjust to your style.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So let's go through the others quickly now.
Okay, so here's how you can pick an S through their body language. They're very friendly, warm, easygoing. They tend to smile quite easily. They're quite relaxed in pace. They tend to speak more slowly, certainly compared to an I, and more thoughtfully. They don't often get excited. Takes a bit to get an S excited. They give great listening body language. They lean in, they nod their heads, they show sympathetic facial expressions and so on. They will reach out, they'll shake hands or even a hug. A warm hello is quite common, and they certainly thank you is part of their normal behaviour. And they love small talk, and they like to connect and develop a sense of trust with the people that they're communicating with. So generally, here's what you need to do to have a good chance with an S. You need to make your body language warm and calm. You need to smile more. You need to relax your voice and your movements and show them that you're actually listening, so they can actually build up a rapport with you. You need to be friendly and calm and present to them. So more specifically, these are the style aspects of each DISC style that you need when you're communicating with an S. And so there is a lot on these slides, but do remember that I'll send out notes, and they will be downloaded from my website after the webinar. So don't be fussed about getting all the details down here. Just check your style and keep the points relevant to your style for it. So if we go on to the C now, here's how to very quickly pick up a C person. They tend to walk very slow. Very rarely they'll maintain eye contact for too long. They're very much great thinkers, so they tend to have typical poses with hands in pockets and things like that, fingers across their chin in a pensive mood. They tend to focus on detail, and they need a lot of evidence. They often pause and think as they go, and hand gestures are very limited, if at all. They're not animated in any great degree. Their voice is typically low volume and slow speed, and they're not at all comfortable with any form of contact. So they tend to avoid personal issues and direct contact. So generally, here's what you need to do to have a good chance with a D. You need to make your body language more reserved and relaxed. You need to be prepared to answer questions, so you need all those details to do that, and also be prepared to wait through the silences while they put everything together and they think through things. So you need to be reserved and happy to sit through silent periods while they think things through. Now here are again the more specific aspects for each disc style when communicating with a C. So ordinarily, Paul, this and a pure D would be styles that you would find more difficult to get your points across to.
Yeah, I think
so.
The
C style is quite reserved, quiet, and obviously you want to get more involved and so on. However, we've actually done your full extended disc behavioural profile report, and I know you actually display some flexibility with Cs as well. So you don't mind talking facts and details, do you?
Yeah, that's right, Rob. We did do my full profile, and I found it's a great report to have. It provided a very sort of unique insight into how to manage myself and others I deal with in business. It showed it was mainly an I and some S in there as well, but some sort of C capabilities too. So yes, I don't mind talking facts and figures at all, and getting into the details. Now, what about a team situation, Rob? How does this work when you have many styles involved?
Okay, in a team, having an appreciation of everyone's communication style is a crucial skill to have to ensure your message gets across. You need to appreciate the best way for a team member to receive your message. So knowing which style quadrant you are and those of your team just makes that process easier. In dealing with an individual of a team, it's a much easier situation as there's only two of you. But imagine if you had an important task or project to get across to a mixed team of styles. Here you need to appreciate who needs what and direct the relevant information by focusing on that person with things like eye contact and body language. So the D in the group who just wants the big picture, you focus your gaze on them and outline what the project will achieve and who's responsible for what. That's really all they're interested in. For the Cs who want details, you need to make sure you know where the details are or how you'll provide more details and specific on the project for them. For the Is, you present how the project will require interaction and involvement of the group. And for the S's, it's important that they feel a sense of accomplishment and solidarity on completion of the group task. So by addressing the various aspects of the project this way, you can influence each member individually and as a team.
That's a great example of how we can all be put together in real life scenario, Rob. So can you take us through now when we've picked a style of a person that we're interacting with, how best to sell an idea or a product or a service to that person?
Okay, so here's how you can use the DISC quadrant system to sell an idea, product or service. So to sell or influence a D style, here's what to do. You need to match their style and tone. You need to be direct and ask them specific questions. Don't waffle, because that'll just irritate them. Provide a couple of alternatives. They like making quick decisions, so don't give them too many things to think about. Remember, for them, they feel like a pioneer, an early adopter, or a leader. So you've got to point out what's in it for them and what will actually raise their profile. Don't be emotional with them. They don't respond to emotion at all, and certainly don't dominate the conversation, as they're the ones that they want to take control, and they want to be the ones talking. Do act quickly, because they do decide pretty quickly, and above all, ask for the sale. So don't waffle on about it. They expect to be closed. So make sure you ask for that sale, and take away any complexities. Again, they're not into detail, so do all the paperwork for them. Get all that all sorted, because they don't want to bother with any of the paperwork. To sell or influence an I style, here's what the important things are. You need to be friendly with them. You need to be open and talk about feelings. Don't race straight into that. So sort of make sure you schedule a bit of chatting time and get socially involved with them. Let them speak. Let them contribute to the interaction. Give them recognition when it's required. Don't go overboard, but compliment them as appropriate. And speak about people and feelings, and use examples and stories to elaborate what you're talking about. And again, ask for the sale. They expect to be asked for the sale. And again, they're a little bit haphazard, so you do most of the organising for them as much as possible.
Okay, so on to S.
Yep. To influence an S style, here's what you need to do. You need to focus on people and use real people examples. So with these, having testimonials is a great way to show how other people have been able to take advantage of what you're offering. Slow down your presentation. Don't be too hectic, because they need time to go through it all. Make sure you build trust with them and show that you're listening to them and being involved. Be very sincere. They can look through insincerity quite easily, and get feedback and be quiet about things. Just give them an opportunity to take it all in. Make sure you provide all the information they need. They like to have their facts and proof available. Make sure you have guarantees, instructions, extra services. They're the sorts of things that they're looking for in terms of their stability and security. Commitment from them will take a piece-by-piece approach. They're not going to make a quick decision. So get them nodding through the whole process as you take them through. And just keep in mind, they're all about fairness and family issues. So present your product, service, and so on as it relates to that in terms of family and strength and so on. And don't force them to make quick decisions. They need some time to go through that. And finally, the C style. With these, you need to provide facts and evidence. Avoid touching them, because they don't respond to that. That's quite an invasive issue for them. Be patient, be slow, allow them time to think things through. Give them plenty of detailed information. Make sure you control your own activity. Don't be too high in your movements and so on, so quite reserved and slow. And don't talk about personal issues. Certainly don't pressure them into decisions, and make sure you focus on the core issues.
Right, well that's great, Rob. There's quite a lot in that. So just then finally, can you just take us through a brief summary of what we've learned today to sort of put it in a bit of an overview?
Okay, so what I've done for you today is hopefully helped you identify what your main energy style may be according to the DISC quadrant model, and applied that to situations where you need to communicate and influence someone else. I've helped you understand why people may react to you the way that they do, whether they're personal interactions or business interactions. We've explored how, by being aware of your own energy type and picking up clues about the energy type of who you're communicating with, this allows you to adapt your style in a way that can give you a much better chance of getting your points across and it being received correctly. This skill is particularly important in team and sales scenarios where one way of presenting your project, product or service isn't going to do the job these days. You need to assess the communication style of who you're talking to and adjust your proposal in a way that it hits the right chords. That way you're more likely to get the sale or the project accomplished. You also need to use the right body language, tone, and other verbal and non-verbal aspects important to who you're communicating with.
Great. Well, that's really good, Rob. I feel like I'm actually going out and doing some practice with a few D's, C's, and S's that I need to communicate with. I'm sure our listeners have also got something really good out of that to apply to their everyday lives. Now, you do have a great offer for those who would like to know more about the extended disc and perhaps a full profile done for themselves. Can you tell us about that? But also while we wait for some questions, people can get their questions going. We'll just go through that offer with you, Rob.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Yes, I do. I'm actually a certified extended disc consultant and trainer, and I've had experience with a number of other profiling products such as Myers-Briggs Type Indicator and Hum-Wadsworth, which is used by Chandler and McLeod in their recruiting process. For those of you who would like to read a little bit more about extended disc, I do have a page on my website devoted to this. So just go to the services section of my website at grapestogrange.com.au. And my special offer for registrants today is a 1/3 off special price for a full eDisc profile and report. So this includes a 24-page report which outlines your style in great detail, and it identifies your motivators, what frustrates you, and what areas are possible targets for your development. This report helps you identify all the other styles and what the do's and the don'ts are for each of those styles. The online questionnaire itself takes under 10 minutes to complete, and we get the results almost immediately. Now, the investment includes a full debrief by me on the whole report. So normally I charge almost $450 for this, but for registrants today, I'm taking 1/3 off and dropping the price to $297. So just click on the link that will appear. I've also got a page on my website for it as well, or contact me and I can arrange that special offer for you.
Fantastic, Rob. That's a very worthwhile investment for anyone. I've done it myself, so I can testify to that being really worthwhile to do. Okay, we have a question from John. He comments that there seems a lot to be able to take in, and that it may not all be possible to put together to pigeonhole someone into a quadrant when you first meet someone. Is there a way to make the association quicker?
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, John. One good suggestion I can offer, which I find works fantastically, is simply to ask someone what they do for their work. The natural style is usually reflected in their choice of career. So someone who runs a business, who directs people, heads a team, particularly a sales team, is often a D in their style. Someone who likes to network and meet people, or has a role that takes them into different environments with new faces, is usually an I. Most people I find that are nurses, teachers, counsellors, or other nurturing style roles are often S style dominant, while accountants, engineers, architects, IT consultants, and other roles like that where they prefer to work on their own or have things that involve a lot of detail and focus are usually C styles. So you can make a pretty confident guess just based on what their work role is. So hopefully that's given you some insight.
Right, so now Debbie has asked whether this applies to written communication as well as verbal. That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a great question, Debbie, and the simple answer is absolutely yes. While you can't use body language and eye contact, etc., the way you actually write a proposal or respond to an email, it's just as important to be aware of who you're writing to. You need to make sure all your points are covered for a C person, for example, that they have all the detail that they need. But you need to be more brief and to the point with a D. You can add some more social interaction when writing to an I, and you focus on the sort of relationship issues with an S. So they're just a few examples of how to apply this to a written communication situation. But certainly, absolutely, it applies in both cases.
Great. So thanks, Rob. So Mike has asked whether the communication style is important when looking at particular salespeople for certain roles. So recruitment question. He has a technical product. So what would be the best style to have?
Now that's another excellent question, Mike. I guess there is a general expectation, for example, in real estate, car sales, and perhaps even insurance selling, that you need to have a more gung-ho style rep who don't take no for an answer. And look, to some extent that's true. These would have a natural D and I tendency in their energy style, so that they can tolerate rejection and not take it to heart. They would be happy to make cold calls and work Google for leads and so on. In technical sales, though, they would find it hard to provide the details on a consistent basis, and they might get frustrated by the length of time that it would take to close a sale. So such sales are more suited to a C-style person or even an S. But on the other hand, they would find cold calling and prospecting a bit difficult to do. So it all depends on what the primary focus is for the role. So yes, by picking the right style for the role, it's important, but it's not the be-all and end-all. As long as a salesperson recognises what's needed and it doesn't require them to be consistently in another form of style, which they would find it quite stressful by, then most talented salespeople should be able to adapt their style to hit the right tone and close the sale.
Okay, great, Rob. Well, look, we're getting close to our time allocation, so thank you, everyone, for your questions and your attendance. If there are any other questions, please email them to Rob and he'll follow up with you. The email addresses are on our Two Wise Heads website. We hope to see you join us in 2 weeks from today for our next webinar on a corporate brand image on a small business budget. So we will be interviewing Richard McKellar of Richard McKellar Design on how to go about redesigning a brand image for your business. So I hope you'll join us then. So just visit our Two Wise Heads website at twowiseheads.com.au to register. Until then, may all your business decisions be wise ones. Goodbye, Rob, and goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.